welcome back to the Squared Circle with me, David Alorca.
And me, Joe Joyce.
That's right, it's a brand new year. We're a month into the brand new year, but it's been a minute since we've been back in the studio, Joe.
Yeah, where you been, bruv?
World tour, my brother, world tour. But enough about me and my world tour. Boxing is about to start its world tour once again. Riyadh season is going to kick off next month, or not next month, next week, basically.
Yeah.
And we have been to Manchester up to go and see Derek Chisora versus Mr. Otto Wallin.
Oh, Derek Chisora, bro. Delbo put in a show that night. What a performance by Derek Chisora. Bit underwhelmed by Otto Wallin. Nevertheless, Derek Chisora did his thing, man.
Yeah, now some people are calling out how good Otto Wallin actually is now. You know, this hindsight revelation that people start doing with boxing, it's like, okay, sometimes it can be true, but it's like people are applying it to absolutely everything these days.
Yeah, I mean, when Otto Wallin beat Gassiev, and then the next fight was Anthony Joshua, everyone thought, okay, this is a proper fight for AJ. It's going to be a real difficult challenge. Southpaw, you know, done some cut, that famous cut against Fury, beat Fury up at times. And AJ blitzed him, and we thought, okay, this is going to be a real difficult challenge for Derek Chisora. But fair play to Derek Chisora because he pretty much beat Otto Wallin up, didn't he?
Yeah, no, it was, in my opinion, very, very conclusive. There were times and moments in the fight where Otto Wallin was teeing off Derek. Do you understand what I'm saying? He was almost hitting him at will, but Derek was absolutely relentless. The thing that we love about Mr. Derek Chisora is that you know what you're going to get when you have him in a fight. You're going to get a fight. You're going to get arms swinging. You're going to get blows, overhand rights coming, overhand lefts coming. You're going to get swings. You're going to get straight hands. And you're going to get relentless pressure. And that's absolutely what he brought.
You're going to get entertainment by Derek Chisora. That's exactly what Derek Chisora is. Doesn't matter what his record is. Everyone goes out to see him. I feel like if you're from the UK, you're a boxer. And if you got your own chant, you're a big boy in the sport. I was thinking about it the other day when I was driving home, yeah. I was like, bruv, if you're big in the UK and you got a chant, people are going to come out to see you. I know that sounds silly, but yeah, man, Derek Chisora, I love watching Derek Chisora. It'll be a shame to see it being his last fight. It's a bit of a bittersweet moment for me seeing it when he has his last fight because at the same time, like, cool, health is paramount, but we love Derek Chisora, man, we do. And what did you think about his call-outs?
Derek, man. I love him because Derek's actually funny. It's funny because down there at ringside, you had Dillian Whyte, who's been hoping to get this fight with Derek Chisora, and it's like Derek is seemingly ignoring the obvious. Do you understand what I'm saying? And he put up there Usyk, he put up there AJ, and he put up there Daniel Dubois, and you know, if I was Dillian Whyte, I'd be sitting there thinking, brother, what about me? Let's get this trilogy on. Funny enough, I think that is the actual fight. I think he's gonna come back to London and do a Dillian Whyte 3 in London. What I found incredibly impressive is the fact that this was a card that was held in Manchester and he actually filled that arena. Like the sound during that main event, the chants were unrelenting, just as unrelenting as his punches during that fight. They were absolutely not just awed, but they were absolutely entertained by Derek Chisora during that fight, which was amazing to see.
It was passionate. It was really it was atmospheric as well. And you know, just quickly on Dillian Whyte, I was a few rows, he was a few rows ahead of me, right? And I was looking at him while Derek got all of the rappers, Skepta, Chip, all of them lot to hold the signs, and I saw him, and he did not look happy, bro. He was actually a bit vexed. But Dillian Whyte said after that, look, he can try and avoid that fight all along, but that's the fight to make, and it's true. I do think that Dillian Whyte versus Derek Chisora is the right fight to make for Chisora, because there's still competition there in my eyes because of Dillian Whyte's long absence in the sport and Chisora fighting in the meantime. So it kind of makes the playing field a bit more equal than what it would have been a few years ago, right? But at the same time, a lot of people were saying that AJ in Wembley could be a shout for Del Boy.
Yeah, because it's just a tough one because them two are boys. They're very, very close from that perspective, you know. Sometimes those fights are quite difficult not just to have, but also to sell in essence, because you're not going to get Dylan, but you're not going to get Derek Chisora doing his usual antics to the exact extent of which he would do, because that's his guy. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's I think it's a possibility. It's a fight that I'd love to see, but I'd love to see it in sparring. That's one of them situations that I'd love to see behind the closed doors of them two going at it from that perspective. But for me, it's Dillian Whyte. I think that's the fight to be made. I think that's the fight to have. And I think that's the fight that actually does some really good numbers from that perspective, you know. I understand that Dillian Whyte would have been upset about the fact that his card wasn't up there, but he also understands the man that is Derek Chisora, and Derek Chisora is unpredictable from that perspective. So the glaringly obvious he's not going to put up there.
Also, quick question: what did you think about the 114-112 scorecard?
Madness.
I couldn't believe it.
Madness.
I think I gave Otto Wallin 3 rounds.
Yeah.
Chisora beat him up throughout the whole fight, and I was just shocked. But I mean, this gonna sound a bit weird, but look, at least it was on his side, right? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it was very techie, because if you look at it, Chisora scored 2 knockdowns. So the truth of the matter is, if it wasn't for both of those knockdowns, that judge would have given it to Otto Wallin, which is wild in my opinion. But and I think in a lot of people's opinion, that's the case. What do you think about many people calling for Derek to call it a day?
I think what Derek's done is quite smart. You know what, with Derek Chisora, obviously we've spoken off camera, you're good friends with Derek, right? He's a really smart guy, you know. The fact that he probably should have retired, or people have been calling for his retirement for at least I feel like 5 to 10 fights now. And the fact that he's always said he wanted to get to 50 kind of give him a bit of leverage, you know, just to work around and get to the fights. I think because of that performance against Otto Wallin, I think it warrants him to have another fight and maybe a few more fights because of how strong he looked against a heavyweight we thought was maybe a top 20 heavyweight in the world. And obviously with Chisora being 41, so the playing field was equal there in my opinion. I think give him his send-off, give him his 50th fight. And someone did ask him during the press conference, post-fight press conference, look, are you going to go above 50? He said, no chance. So if 50, his last fight, give it to him and hope he makes a lot of money and has a great retirement. I hope he manages to win that 50th and have a nice send-off.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In my opinion, I think it's a tough one because he's still filling up stadiums. Arenas. Sorry, he's still filling up arenas, but at the same time, as somebody that personally knows him and loves him, right? Obviously, I care about his long-term health and how well he's doing from that perspective. At the same time, he's a grown man, he's an adult. And the majority of the money that he's made in boxing has come in the latter stages of his career. So it's wrong for people to I guess, for all of the work that he's done up until these last, I guess, 10 years or so in the sport. These last 10 years, or these last, I won't even say 10, these last 7, 8 years he's made more money in that period of time than he did in the, 30 something fights that he had prior. So the investment that he's put in, now he's actually getting the returns of it. I think it warrants him getting to 50. I think it warrants him getting the necessary paydays that will put him and his family and his generation in good stead going forward. And like you said, it was a very good performance against Otto Wallin. And Otto Wallin after the fight even spoke about his power, about his relentless pressure, and so kudos to Mr. Derek Chisora, and we look forward to seeing and hearing what's coming up next, whether it's going to be in London or whether it's going to be in Saudi.
Shout out Doughboy, man. I hope he gets to 50. He must be sick and tired of hearing retire. So look, he's going to do what he wants at the end of the day. But let's move on, talking about, his 55 against Dillian Whyte. But Dillian Whyte has a fight against Joe Joyce, which was announced yesterday on that Queensbury DAZN announcement. Let's start off with the 3 fights that have DAZN and Queensbury have announced. First being Whyte versus Joyce, with Riakporhe and Okoli on the undercard. Really, really good start for Queensbury. After, we have Anthony Kakachi versus Lee Wood in May, I believe. And also in May, we have the former undisputed champion in Josh Taylor versus Echo Esserman. Good start for Queensbury.
No, very good. A very solid announcement for Queensbury, announcing the initial free event schedule from that perspective, and they've kicked it off with a bang. When we saw Joe Joyce at ringside and we saw Dillian Whyte at ringside, we knew what was coming.
Yeah, it was coming.
And obviously those in the media received like emails about the press conference on the Monday. So it all started to add up and make sense. And even on the car ride up, you spoke about the fact that Dillian versus Joe Joyce, which I think is going to be a very good fight. We're going to see what is left of both of these two fighters, what is left of Dillian Whyte and what is left of Joe Joyce after coming off the back of the defeat to Chisora. And obviously the two losses to Zhili Zhang with a one win in the middle of those two. We're going to see what he has left, especially his resilience, the chin that he's dined out on for quite a long period. We're going to see, how that's looking. And obviously Dillian Whyte has had such a long layoff out of the ring. He's had two comeback fights against not great opposition. And so he knows that he's in a real fight here, in a real fight. Obviously every fight is serious, but he knows he's up against a real challenger here in Joe Joyce, who hits hard and who keeps coming forward.
And he was one of the best amateurs we've ever seen in this country as well, Joe Joyce. So I love Joe Joyce. I think he's such a nice guy, but I think it's fair to say he is deteriorating as a fighter. Even those last performances and the fight that he won in between, I think it was against Cash Ali, it wasn't a great performance either. And Joe Joyce really should have blitzed Cash Ali out there, but he didn't. I think his famous chin, I think it started to deteriorate. I think there's some cracks and it's started to shatter, to be honest, because even Chisora dropped him as well. Obviously, Derek Chisora's a cracker, but people used to say which one would win, Deontay Wilder's right hand or Joe Joyce's chin. That was the conversation. And now the fact to have people like Derek Chisora,
Zhili
Zhang. I mean, Zhang's a banger as well, but he wasn't Wilder type of power. You know what I mean?
I like that pun you threw in there still.
Yeah.
You didn't even know you did it, did you? Zhang's a banger.
Zhang's a banger. Big bang get Zhanged, yeah. I don't even clock, yeah. But yeah, you see what I'm trying to say? I think the fact that even his stamina, Joe Joyce was known as, relentless, going ahead. He looks tired these days. So I do worry for Joe Joyce. I think this is a good fight nonetheless, but just because of where Dillian Whyte is in the stage of his career. Dillian Whyte didn't look great in his recent fight. I think it was in Gibraltar on DAZN, and I watched it. I love Dillian Whyte. He's one of my favorite fighters as well. So he didn't look great as well. So I think it's a good fight, and it's a must win. Every fight's a must win, but this one's definitely a must win. And I think whoever loses this fight can forget about the Riyadh season dream, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. We'll move down the card to Lawrence Okoli versus Richard Riakporhe. Richard Riakporhe making his maiden voyage up in the heavyweight division. The press conference, Okoli during the press conference, he's the one that actually brought the heat.
Yeah, he was on smoke.
He was an absolute smoke. He wasn't having it from anybody. He practically called out everybody on the stage, basically, and I think nobody responded besides David Adeleye at some point. He was on the smoke. He feels good as a heavyweight, and funny enough, on the drive back from Manchester, you mentioned it, that seeing him and seeing his size, you wonder how the heck did this guy get down into cruiser.
I couldn't believe it. He is massive. I was shocked when I saw him. I spoke to him for 30 seconds and got a photo of him and just said is it going to be a Riakporhe? He just smiled and just walked away. And bruv, he's massive. I am so shocked, David, he made cruiserweight and he made it for all those years. I couldn't believe it. Richard Riakporhe, actually speaking on the smoke he was on, he was talking about Richard Riakporhe's gal in Madonna as well, bruv. Oh my God. He's like, I'm in the gym while your lips in Madonna, bruv. And I couldn't believe it. He is on smoke, Okoli.
He was calling out Madonna from early. He was trying to get underneath Richard Riakporhe's skin.
And I love that.
And he's a cold-hearted he's a cold-hearted banterer still.
Yeah.
He
With a straight face as well, yeah.
With a straight face, anyhow, you know what I'm saying? Even at one stage, you know, Dev Sani, I love Dev because Dev is like the
Biggest
guy,
star in the world.
he loves it.
That's his job.
He loves it because it's like you can almost tell when it's happening. And his style is so dry as well, which makes it even more funny.
Yeah.
But he got a little something going between Okoli and Dillian. Obviously, Okoli said, "Yeah, I'd like that fight next, win, lose or draw." We'd love to see that as well.
Yeah.
But we know that it's likely not to happen in this instance. I don't think it's likely to happen as a next fight.
I think as a next fight, do you think it will ever happen?
It depends on what happens with Lawrence Okoli. If Lawrence Okoli keeps winning, I don't think he's going to be looking at Dillian Whyte. I don't think his advisors or his coach is going to allow him to look in that direction.
But Lawrence is the one that was adamant. Like he's so determined to making that fight happen for the last few years, right? And especially, I think it was an infamous sparring story that basically Okoli baited out Whyte, saying this is what happens when a cruiserweight goes up against a heavyweight. And ever since then, they haven't liked each other. Even when they met ringside, I looked at both of them, you know, trying to say hi. Dillian was not looking. Dillian just went like this and just like Dillian did not want anything to do with Okoli. So I was a bit surprised to see how not buddy, but more comfortable they were with one another on the press conference. Because when Okoli came and tried to shake Dillian Whyte's hand, Dillian Whyte just went like this, like that. He didn't want to show any sort of affection towards Okoli.
Yeah, but that's because Dylan's from Rhodes, isn't it? Dylan's like, you know,
there's consequences for chatting, basically.
Yeah. You don't do the chatty, and he's gonna come and smile, laugh, and joke, and not pull you up on it, or and pretend like you ain't heard, read, or seen what you've been saying. So, you know, some people are like it's business. You know what I'm saying? We'll just tear. But Dillian, the division between business and what's real is a lot thinner than it is for most people. But yeah, I don't know. I think if Okoli keeps winning, they know that is a potential banana skin. If especially Dillian Whyte keeps winning and keeps looking good, unless the people are calling for that fight, I don't think that's going to happen. This Okoli versus Richard Riakporhe fight, how do you think that one's going to play out?
That's funny. I was going to ask you as well. I was thinking, look, they both lost to Chris Billam-Smith recently, and Chris Billam-Smith pretty much dominated both of them. So I know styles make fights as well. I'm not quite sure, to be honest. I like. It's a great fight because I'm not sure, to be honest. But I would favour Okoli just because of what Okoli did in his cruiserweight days, and he got to the heavyweight scene a bit earlier than Riakporhe. I want to see what Riakporhe's going to be like at heavyweight. Is he going to be slower? He's going to hit harder when you move up from cruiserweight to heavyweight. It's standard. You are going to hit harder. But how are you going to deal with that extra weight? Okoli in his last fight was so heavy. So I can't imagine he will be that heavy against Riakporhe. I think he'll need to be a bit leaner and put on Richard. But to be honest, it's a great fight. I don't really have a winner. I can't pick. If I had to sway, it's probably 51% towards Okoli. But I don't know, to be honest, because I don't know what the quality is there with both fighters right now, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's a very good matchup because you're having two former cruiserweights both coming up to heavy. Yeah. And I think it's going to be exciting.
If it was cruiserweight days, I would have probably favoured Okoli. But in heavyweight, I still probably favour Okoli just because of the size, actually, thinking about now, yeah. Now, I'm going to go with Okoli on that one, but there's no confidence in that. But that's what a great fight is when you're not sure who's going to win. And that is one of the most anticipated British fights. It was there with the AJ Furies, not in terms of that scale, but it was one of those fights that people want to see in Britain. Yarde, Boatsi, and I think Okoli, Riakporhe was in that conversation as well. So I'm glad it's happening finally. And I'm really excited, to be honest. What do you think about the Kakachi Lee Wood fight, actually, and the Taylor Esserman ones as well? Quickly?
Yes. So the Kakachi fight is happening at Motor Point Arena. I think that is going to be a very, very exciting fight. I think Lee Wood's been out in the cold for a little while, and Kakachi obviously captured that world title against Joe Cordina,
who relinquished it after.
Yeah, who was sat there at ringside as well. Who's finding it difficult to get a fight at the moment. And And Lee Wood somehow has this ability to just come back from wherever, and I can't call that fight right now, but I'm super excited for that one. The Josh Taylor Essuman fight, that is going to be a fight and a half. Essuman always brings it. Josh Taylor, the new signing for Queensbury as well.
And moving up to welterweight.
Exactly. He is one of the most, or he was one of the most skilled and talented fighters in the world, to be honest with you, at the time. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does at welterweight. I think the majority of people will have him winning that fight because we haven't seen Essuman fight at that level.
Yeah.
However, Essuman's an incredible fighter, and so I'm super excited and looking forward to seeing this one.
100%. I'm really excited for that fight. I'd like to see what Essuman's going to do because Josh Taylor is in an elite club. Like, there's not a lot of names. There's not a lot of names you can say I'm undisputed champion in the 4-belt era. Like, I don't think there's more than 20. If that's just a random number I've given out. But I was actually just thinking about this now. What do you think about Queensbury? It feels like Queensbury are bringing back British boxing again. You know what I mean? Like, back in the Matchroom days, like you saw British fights after British fights. White Chisoras, Hey Belly, so that little era where it was just British fight after British fight. And it feels like Queensbury have come into the zone and done that, also taking away all of the Matchroom fighters that were having those British fights, Coley, White, Chisora, Lee Wood, so on and so forth, right? I think Joe Cordina looks like he's going to join Queensbury soon, judging from him being ringside as well. So what do you think about that? Now it seems like Queensbury have taken away the British aspects from Matchroom and now embracing it.
I think Queensbury have looked at what has made Matchroom successful.
Yeah.
And what made Matchroom successful during the era and time Matchroom was dominating was exactly that. They owned and dominated this space.
Yeah.
Right? Now, obviously, Matchroom are now on a global agenda looking at things out in Australia, in Japan, in the US, and so on and so forth. So it's fair to say that they kind of maybe have taken their eye off the domestic ball, and that is where Queensbury has come in to reign supreme. That's exactly what they're doing. They're reigning supreme within this domestic space. If you look at the domestic space, Matchroom can't compete with Queensbury when it comes to that, when it comes to domestic names within the sport of boxing. So I think it's just brilliant strategic planning from Queensbury, and it's not just by chance. It comes from strategy, and you can see that by the appointments that they've made, by the fighters that they're signing, for the length of contract that they're giving them, the disputes that they're having with certain fighters to keep them on. One of which we're about to talk about in Anthony Yarde, that there was a lot of dispute going on over there. But then we see Anthony Yarde by ringside. He might be back with Big Uncle Frank.
He said they're back together now. The gang have joined back together, and no love lost between them two, I'm pretty sure. But it's good for Anthony Yarde finally. To be fair, if I'm from the UK now, Frank always does well for his fighters, 100%, and that's biggest compliment I can give to Frank Warren. He'll give you either a title shot or a good domestic fight, and get you going once again. Like he's still backing Joe Joyce, and just because there's loyalty with Frank, so I'm really happy that Anthony Yarde goes back with Frank Warren, because that's when they started together. So they might as well finish together and continue their relationship, right? But I was just thinking with Matchroom, right? Why did they let all of these fighters go? Like, what was do you think there was a slight arrogance there? Because they are probably the leading global promotional company out there. I think they're I don't think there is anything but Matchroom as a global promotional company out there in boxing. And they, you did say they took the eye off the domestic scene, which I think they did as well. But why do you think they let go of all these fighters like Word, White, Chisora? Because Queensbury has shown that you can still make great fights with them and entertainment. And I think Matchroom thought, you can't do that with these fighters anymore. And Queensbury kind of recycled it and repolished it.
There are a lot of factors that are involved in that. I don't think it's going to be one. It's usually a catalogue of things, right? At the time, maybe Matchroom were paying them a certain amount. And obviously now that some of these fighters have lost, they're not, in Matchroom's eyes, worth that amount. And they also do not want to go down from that perspective with Matchroom. So Matchroom would just be like, okay, cool, then we've got to part ways. what they're probably getting paid at Queensbury may not be the same amount they were getting paid at Matchroom, to be honest with you. And so sometimes that's indeed what happens. But you're prepared to take a hit when you're moving across to the other side because you're prepared to go work and build back up. From the Matchroom perspective, I think part of it is strategic planning. You can't be a jack of all trades. You have to have some degree of focus, right? And Matchroom are focusing on the global state of boxing. They're looking at the US. They're looking at, like I said, Australia, New Zealand, Japan. Like they're looking across the world on a global perspective, and that takes away your focus of importance on the domestic scene. In their opinion, the domestic scene of boxing probably is at saturation, and the growth areas are in the global spaces, and that is where they're looking to pave the way and gain some degree of dominance. Meanwhile, from a strategic perspective, you've got Queensbury who are looking like, okay, we're just gonna while you're off doing that on your conquest, we're just gonna take over this place, and once you've made the inroads over there, then we'll come over there and eat some of that as well. And I think that's the strategic planning on both sides.
It definitely does look like that. I'm really look. It's weird because Matchroom are, doing their thing globally, but in the UK, I actually think Queensbury are probably gone above Matchroom now, and I think that's fair to say. And you know what, I'm the biggest Matchroom Eddie Hearn advocate, and I have to admit that as well, because it's a shame that they've done that, because the reason why they've become global is because British boxing is where it's at, not America, not Japan, not Australia, not anywhere. I think Britain is where it's always been at. That's why Turki Al Sheikh came to Eddie Hearn, came to Frank Warren, and made them two the guys to lead Riyadh season.
Yeah, no, I agree, but you got to look at it on scale, right?
Yeah.
British boxing is where it's at on to a certain degree for us. You see, sometimes people that are involved and interested in a certain sport, that becomes their entire world, right? Just like Americans believe that the Super Bowl is the biggest thing in the entire world, when it's like, you man, watch it. Obviously, we tune in to just the Super Bowl, right? Majority of people are not watching freaking a regular season game from that perspective. But if you compare that to football, it's on a different scale. It's about scalability. When you're looking at a sport like boxing, how far down the pecking order is it in the US? Okay, it's way down there. It's behind American football. It's behind basketball. It's behind baseball. It's behind so many other sports. But America has a population of over 300 million people. So as a percentage base, although it's behind those other sports, it has a bigger audience and generates more money than it does in the UK. Big fights in the UK generates in the tens of millions. Big fights in the US that generates in the hundreds of millions. So that's the difference. So Matchroom are looking at it from a bottom line perspective. They're a business. They're looking at it from a business perspective, not just in the sense of what you enjoy and what I enjoy. That's why Eddie Hearn can sit down and say, oh, I wouldn't have no regrets about this fight happening or this fight not happening, because you're looking at it from a fan perspective in terms of legacy, in terms of boxing legacy, in terms of being a fan. They're looking at it in terms of corporation legacy, what we're doing for the company, where the company is gonna go moving forward, and those are the two different ways.
For sure, I would definitely agree with you. But let's move on and talk about a former Matchroom fight in Canelo Alvarez finally agreeing a 4-fight deal with Turki Al Sheikh. It looked like it was going to be the Jake Paul fight, which a lot of people were not happy with. And then HE comes in and goes, nah, you're not doing that, brother. I'm giving you a 4-fight deal. I'm giving you 4 massive paychecks, one in Riyadh, then the September fight versus Terence Crawford, then another one in Riyadh for Riyadh season opening ceremony night, and then one more in Riyadh as well. The first fight, this, I think, is May 3rd against William Scull for the undisputed super middleweight championship of the world. A lot of people don't know about William Scull. I'm one of those people. I know he has a really good amateur background. He was the reason why Canelo decided to relinquish the IBF belt, because he didn't want to fight William Scull. But now, maybe a year or a few months later, he's decided to fight William Scull.
I don't think Canelo didn't want to fight William Scull in terms of he was afraid of William Scull.
Yeah.
I think he didn't want to fight him because it's not a fight that sells, that makes enough money. So it was like, I'd rather not be forced to fight him. Let me just relinquish the belt because I am Canelo. The belt means nothing. I'm the person who brings the money here. And so I think that is the reason as to why he let that fight go. But obviously now, you know, Riyadh season is chasing legacy, momentous fights that have meaning, that will go down in history forever. And not just because of, we want to bring people to Saudi Arabia, but because Turkey Al-Sheikh owns Ring Magazine, which is part and ingrained in the history of the sport of boxing. So there is two things that are happening here simultaneously and concurrently at the same time. So it's one of them things where, yes, that fight is not going to be seen as an incredible fight. That's why he's like, that we'll have that fight in Riyadh. We'll have that in Riyadh. That'll be an amazing fight. The first time Canelo comes over to Riyadh, glorious.
Massive.
But that is to line up the next fight, which will 100%, for me right now, be the biggest fight of the year. Canelo versus Crawford for the undisputed super middleweight world championships. And obviously we don't want to look over, Mr. Scull, but the truth of the matter is he needs to come to Riyadh and get beat. That's what he needs to do. And he needs to make sure that right now he's not getting injured, because we need that fight. Regardless, that fight in September will be exceptional. But it gives Crawford the opportunity to become an undisputed world champion in yet another weight class.
3 times, which is shocking. I always thought if he was ever going to be 3 times, it'd be 154 pounds. But his next fight, I don't think Crawford's going to have a fight between the Canelo fight. So I think that the next fight is going to be Canelo. Did you see what he posted on recently? The weight, I think it's north of 180. I think 189 pounds, something like that.
Yes.
Obviously the fight's at 168. So if he's walking around 189 pounds, it looks reassuring. The thing is with Canelo and Crawford, they are same height. Obviously body stature is not the same, but Crawford's a really strong guy. I think he could deadlift 3 times his weight, and a lot of people underestimate how strong Terence Crawford is. He's a workhorse. So people thought Matchroom was going to bully him at 154 pounds with the size and weight. So it's a big ask for Terence Crawford. I think it's fair to say I'm going to think Canelo Alvarez is the favourite because it's his weight class. It's Canelo Alvarez. He's got a chin that's indestructible, it seems. And he hits really hard. If Crawford's going to win, I think he's going to have to, punch him punches and bunches and tap and move. I can't see Crawford stopping Canelo.
Crawford is a better boxer than Bivol. And I know Bivol is your guy. And I know that's going to take you some time to sit there and think about and mull over. But I'm telling you, Crawford, as a boxer, is one of the best that we've seen.
Yeah.
So if he size-wise, height-wise, is in and around the same space as Canelo, for me, I'm not saying, end of the day, it's easy all day. No. But I just think that Crawford, up against such a momentous challenge as this, we are going to see one of the greatest fights we have ever witnessed. I genuinely believe that. And I believe the way in which we watch this fight, we're going to want to see it again. We're going to want to see it again. Not because of it ends in an inconclusive nature, but because I think the styles are going to marry beautifully. I think the styles are going to marry beautifully. But for me, I understand why Canelo is the favorite. He should be. He's campaigned at this weight class for God knows how long. Crawford has come up from freaking, you know what I'm saying, way down. Not just 147, but 135 pounds exactly. Yeah. So we're looking at, but you have to understand that Crawford is special, and not special just because of talent, but because he puts in the work necessary to be special. I agree with you though. Funny enough, I don't think he's going to take a fight in between because Crawford's not a ring rust kind of fighter.
No,
he's not a fighter that gets ring rest because he's been out of the competitive squared circle for a while, because he doesn't really ever stay out of the squared circle. So I think it's going to be a fight and a half, and I big credit, big kudos to HE, Mr. Turkey Al-Sheikh, because getting this fight on, signing Canelo, like the biggest name in boxing is exceptional. You spoke about it to me in the car the other day. The only person left for him to sign is Gervonta Davis. Gervonta Davis is the only guy that's on the outside now because everybody is in Riyadh season now. He is locked up. Everybody's involved. Everybody's in and around the space, which is phenomenal. But to get a coup like Saul Canelo Alvarez on a 4-fight deal, basically on a 2-year deal.
4 fights as well, yeah.
Forget it.
I think that's probably the biggest move that Terence Crawford has ever made in his career. Not his career, I mean, ever made in his promotional
venture.
Yeah. So, yeah, bring Canelo is massive. I think Tank, do you know what? After seeing that, I think Tank's going to come eventually. I think there's too much money for Tank to avoid. Then again, I think Tank doesn't want to fight the lightweights, but that's for another episode. But yeah, Terence Crawford is one of the hardest working fighters there's ever been. I've seen so many documentaries on Terence Crawford. So I 100% he won't be ring rust. I do think if Crawford beats Canelo, he'll go down as one of the top 10 best fighters of all time. I don't know where in that top 10, or maybe one day we'll do an episode of where we rank our top 10 fighters of all time, but he definitely goes into that conversation.
No doubt.
And you mentioned Bivol as well, him being a better fighter than Bivol, but Bivol's fighting next week. And Turki Al-Sheikh has said if Dimitri Bivol does beat Beterbiev in their rematch, there will be a trilogy.
Love it. Absolutely love it. It probably won't be for the Undisputed because
that's fine to me.
The big boys at the IBF are going to do something about that. but the reality is I'd love that. And to be honest with you, if I'm calling my prediction right now, I'm calling Bivol to win it.
You know, since I've meeting Beterbiev, I actually love Beterbiev. I really, really, really love him. But as a fight fan, taking away my respect and admiration for Beterbiev, I'm still going to go with Bivol as well. I think Bivol, he's on a revenge tour, innit? Like, he does look like he wants smoke, he wants revenge. And I think there's more of an incentive for Bivol to win than Beterbiev. Not to say Beterbiev won't want to win and be professional and give his best performance. I just think there's more juice in Bivol's tank to win this one. Which the fight, I think, is not this week and the weekend after. Feels like we've been talking about this card happening for such a long time, and next minute it's happening, which is such a sick card. We'll do a prediction video next week. We'll just focus on that card next week, but really, really excited for that fight. And I think that's it for this episode. I think what we got this Saturday, we got Castro versus Barboza, a good fight. And final eliminator for Teofimo Lopez's title. Who'd you have in that fight?
Jack Carroll, one of the most underrated fighters. Which I know you strongly believe in as well.
Yeah, I think he's the most underrated fight in the world right now, to be honest. Let me know in the comments, guys. Is there anyone more underrated than Jack Catterall in the world right now? But yeah, I think Catterall should win that, and I can't wait to see that fight against Teofimo Lopez eventually.
Without a shadow of a doubt. Well, guys, it's great to be back in the studio, back with my boy Joe, and we're glad to have you back here on the Squared Circle. I've been David Aloka.
And I've been Joe Ojula.
And we'll see you again next time.
Make sure you subscribe.